Today is Friday, January 5th, 2024. We're going to go around the bases with our MLB insider at the New York Post. He is none other than John Heyman. John, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Ryan? It's good to be back. How was your holiday and how's your new year?
It was good, man. It was good. I'm excited to start the new year. We got some baseball news this week with the locals. Harrison Bader signed with the New York Mets yesterday. We got that news. So let's start with the New York Mets as our top story. It's been a quiet offseason to say the least. Some small moves, Luis Severino, Harrison Bader. But overall, for the Mets, there hasn't been a big acquisition. So when you're looking at it so far as we're heading into the new year, how do you assess what's going on with the New York Mets right now? Is there still a move to happen for them?
Yeah, I mean, no reflection on Bader or Severino. I like them both very much. They've been great to deal with, but I mean, these are two guys the Yankees really didn't want at this point, and they've had some injury questions. Obviously, both talented guys. At Severino, I think the question is he tipping pitches? Bader just needs to stay healthy. There's obviously potential there, but there's a reason these guys are getting one-year deals right now. They've been hurt, and it looks like the Mets are really not shooting for 2024. They're shooting for 2025. And I guess we shouldn't be shocked, right? I mean, the word was they were going to be competitive this year, but they were really going to go for it in 2025. I think Max Scherzer laid that all out for us. And, the Mets basically told him the truth and he accepted it. And we shouldn't be shocked, I guess. But they do not look like a contender to me. I mean, one man's competitive is not another man's
Yeah.
competitive, I guess. But is there any chance they're going to beat the Braves or the Phillies at this
Who just
point?
got
I
Chris
mean,
Sale?
we'll see what's going to happen now. I mean, there are obviously free agents left. There are still trade pieces left. You don't want to count them out on anything, but if these are the biggest moves of the offseason, again, no knock on Severino or Bader specifically, but if these are the big moves, I'm not sure they are going to be competitive.
Yeah, it's interesting you put it that way, John, because we got the news over the holiday break that Yamamoto is going to sign with the Dodgers, monster deal, and that seemed like the big piece that the Mets were all in on, and it just
Yeah.
ultimately they didn't end up with him. So, in the follow up here, do you see possibly a Snell or a Montgomery or one of those type of big name pitchers that the Mets could still go out to fill out that rotation?
I mean, as we're doing this right now, no, I don't see that. Now, things change in free agency. Obviously, Steve Cohen has the wherewithal to do it. The Mets could certainly step in there and go for a Montgomery or a Snell. I'm not sure that they'll be able to win the bidding anyway, because frankly, they don't look like a division winner. We'll see what goes on with what they have. But I mean, Montgomery looks like he has a big market. It looks like Texas is back in play. Boston, maybe Philly. The Yankees like him. They had him. They still like him. Angels, Giants. Snell's market may not be quite as robust in terms of the numbers, but obviously that's big bucks. And, frankly, I just feel like the Mets were kind of all in on Yamamoto. Steve Cohen and Stearns went out there to visit him. They had him over to Steve Cohen's house. It had to be quite a disappointment that they didn't get him. Same with the Yankees. The Yankees were actually confident they were going to get him. I don't know how confident the Mets were. I don't know if they look at my odds board, but I had the Mets at 8-1 with 2 weeks to go. So I didn't think the Mets were likely to get Yamamoto. I thought perhaps those rumors of the West Coast were accurate. Yankees didn't believe it. Yamamoto did what he does, what guys do in negotiation. He went into those meetings with the Yankees and he was practiced. He knew about Yankee history, but ultimately, I really don't think he ever wanted to be a Yankee. The Yankees may have a different view of it. They may feel like, well, we tried and maybe he got cold feet. I don't think so. I think he wanted to be on the West Coast, and that was the result. And certainly a disappointment for both teams. Felt like that was the Mets guy. Now the Yankees, I think, may pivot and try to do something big as well without Yamamoto.
Yeah, before we get to the Yankees there, one last question on the Mets before we move on. The DH position, that was another thing that's been discussed. How are the Mets going to address that? We got the news Ronnie Mauricio probably out for the year after getting knee surgery. There's Vientos. They have guys possibly in-house they'd want to put in that DH spot, but do you see a JD Martinez, a Justin Turner, any one of those guys who are still out in the market that the Mets could bring in as a DH option?
Yeah, I mean, they've certainly talked to both guys. I think JD Martinez is the better fit of the two. I love Justin Turner personally, but I mean, they've been looking for a guy to bat behind Alonso for years. This has been a weakness of the team. This is something they can actually improve on. If you get JD Martinez, who was 30 and 100 last year, was the cleanup man for the NL team in the All-Star game. He's certainly a home run threat and a threat to bat behind Alonso if they are able to do it. I do think that the Angels, the Diamondbacks, other teams are in on him. Justin Turner has a robust market. He had a terrific year in Boston. He obviously would be a great addition and be kind of a make good because obviously they let him go for nothing years ago. I guess that was about a decade ago at
Yeah.
this point, and he's forged a great career. So I'm not going to say I'd be disappointed with Justin Turner, but to me, Martinez is probably the fit because they need somebody to bat behind Alonso. They should have somebody to bat behind Alonso.
Yeah, definitely a spot it feels like they need to fill in for that lineup. But let's move on to the Yankees here, John. Obviously, Juan Soto was the big get for them. They traded for Juan Soto. They finally spent some money technically in the offseason when they signed Petit last this week. So there's still that, and it feels like that rotation needs to be addressed for the Yankees because they did trade away a lot of that depth with Michael King.
Yeah.
They still have Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez, Carlos Rodon, but there's still feel, and obviously lost Luis Severino and Domingo Germán. So the rotation still feels there needs to be another big time starter there. So are they going to make a big move? Let's say, like we talked about, for Snell, for Montgomery. Could they be in the trade market? How are they going to address this rotation?
First of all, I'll say they did spend. I mean, you mentioned finally spent on Poteet. I guess if you look at it as free agents, right? But I mean, Juan Soto is going to make $30 million in
100%.
arbitration, so I consider that spending as well. And Verdugo has a salary too, and so does Grisham. But let's move on to the pitching. Yes, they definitely need to fortify that rotation. Obviously, King going over to San Diego, Severino is now gone. Still questions on Rodon and Cortez whether they are going to be able to stay healthy. So they would like to get some pitching. And, ultimately, maybe it'll be a mid-tier guy. Maybe it'll be a Mania or a Ryu or somebody like that. But they're shooting high right now. So they're definitely looking at Snell. They are looking at Montgomery. I don't think their chances are great for Montgomery. I mean, look, they traded him away. He wasn't going to be part of their playoff rotation. I don't know that he has any hard feelings, but
Mm.
he was a playoff hero and helped the Rangers win the World Series. And now Texas seems to be resolving or on the road to resolving, it appears, their local TV deal. And, if they have the money, I think Morton Montgomery probably is their top guy. I can see Hader over there as well. But, he's going to have Philly, Boston. He's got a lot of potential teams. Snell is a guy, I'm not sure he has as robust a market in terms of the number of teams. I'm sure that the Angels, the Giants, and some other teams are interested in Snell, but I do think that he would go to the Yankees if they made the right offer. And I think, it's not my money. It's easy for me to say. Obviously that would give them two defending Cy Young winners. They'd be
Yeah.
the first team since the 1990 Kansas City Royals. That didn't work out for them, I don't think, but certainly Mark Davis did not perform for them. He had won the Cy Young with San Diego as a reliever in '89, came over to the Royals. They already had Brett Sabragen. Not too often you get two defending Cy Young winners on the same team. So Snell would be great. Obviously, we're going to hear about Cease. I'm hearing that they're far apart with Cease, just as the Orioles are.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that likely they're able to beat out the Orioles, who have, prospects from here to eternity. And Baltimore should be able to get Cease if they want him, right? I mean, if you're the White Sox, don't you keep knocking on Baltimore's door
Yeah.
until they give something up? So I'm not counting on Cease as a Yankee. I get why everybody's interested in him. He's going to make like 12 million or something like that. He's probably worth 30 million at this point. He's 2 years from free agency. He's extremely reliable. And you have to mention that these days with so many pitching injuries, he's pitched 30 starts the last 3 years. And 2 years ago, he's one of the best in the league. So I get it. They should be talking to Cease. They're not going to want to give up Dominguez and those guys to
No.
get Cease. So, I would look at the free agent route. If you don't get Snell or Montgomery, there are other guys. They have a depth issue as well due to that San Diego trade, which I'm not regretting that trade.
No.
That was a good
No.
trade. And certainly they have an incredible 1-2 punch with Judge and Soto. But it would be nice to see that kind of a 1-2 punch in the rotation as well.
You're not kidding, John. So that's where, like, when you brought that news this week, and I was like, wow, okay, the Yankees seem to be in on Snell all of a sudden. Why is there not this robust market that we talk about for an NL Cy Young winner? Is there a market pullback from the team saying, I don't know if it's worth the investment because of his age, or is there something else that we're not hearing about Snell that this is a Cy Young winner? This is a guy who should get
Yeah.
big money.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all out there at this point. There's no secrets anymore. I mean, Snell is one of the best pitchers in the game, dominant. Certainly led the league in ERA, 2.25, I think it was last year. Led in batting average against, led in OPS against, led both leagues. In fact, beat out Cole in those areas. So
Yeah.
dominant pitcher, absolutely terrific pitcher. But I mean, nobody's perfect, and there's some little knocks on him. He's not a 7 inning pitcher, right? He's a 5 or 6 inning pitcher. He's also been a little bit up and down in terms of the years. He's had 3 great years, and then obviously he's a free agent, so he's had at least 6 years at this point. So the other years were not that great. But to me, if you sign the guy, let's say you sign him for a 7 year deal, and he's great for 3 of those years, well, he's probably worth it. It's probably a good deal at this point, right?
Right.
I mean, people still think of Sale as something good. He helped them win 1 World Series. He's basically been hurt almost since then. So, you're not going to get perfection. I think people saw Yamamoto's record. He's 25 years old. Every top team was in on him. It is a little bit funny that he's never
Never
pitched in a
pitched.
major league game, and every big market team wanted him.
Yep.
Whereas with Snell, it's a limited number of teams. I think it's probably more than we know or think we know, but it's a little bit more limited. And, people know the knocks on him. He has been pitching in the major leagues, so we know what the weak strengths and weaknesses are. Whereas Yamamoto looked perfect with a 1.82 ERA through the no-hitter. When Brian Cashman went out there to see him, of course, it was against a terrible team in Japan. So, everybody's got their evaluation, and people loved Yamamoto, and maybe he'll prove out to be incredible. Certainly being 25 is a big advantage over being 30. But I mean, Snell's one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Cy Young
So
winner. He's the best pitcher in the NL. So
twice, twice he's the youngest free agent 2 time Cy Young winner ever. I had Pedro Martinez and Saberhagen, who were 32. So
right.
he was 30 as a free agent. He may have turned to 31 now. I'm not sure, but he's a 30-year-old free agent. And, obviously it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to cost tax as well. But the Yankees were prepared to spend $300 million on
Right.
Yamamoto, right? This is
And
also
Snell
a
won't
draft
cost
choice.
that.
Yeah, no, he's got a draft choice. Doesn't have the posting fee that was $50 million with Yamamoto, but there is a draft choice attached to Snell.
Right. It just, for me, and I wonder about the Yankees and how Cashman's probably thinking about this. In his own words, it was a disaster of a season last year. When you have an opportunity like to add a Blake Snell possibly out there, is there a little bit pushback from him or his team saying, well, we signed Carlos Rodon and that didn't work out in the first year. We're a little cautious, maybe on a Blake Snell coming off a great season. Is there anything there in their mind where could we have a repeat of Carlos Rodon and it could be it could burn us in the first year already of a 6 year commitment?
Well, I just think it's the two things that I said, that he's not a 7 inning pitcher. Who is? I
Right.
mean, basically
No
Cole,
one is.
Nola, Wheeler. There's like 5 to 6 pitchers who throw 7 innings plus a game. He's not one of them. Now, as far as dominance, he's in the top 2 along with
Yeah.
Cole. So he obviously has huge strengths, but that is the knock, that he's not a 7 inning or 8 inning pitcher at this point.
Right, and that
So
feels like
that's
a
it.
weak argument, yeah, at this point, considering most of baseball, like you said, starting pitchers don't go really more than 6 in today's game when you have a lot of teams are stacking up their bullpens anyway. But speaking of bullpen, Josh Hader is another guy that's out there as a free agent. There's other
Right.
big name free agents that we haven't talked about, including Cody Bellinger, Reese Hoskins, Jorge Soler. What are the big names you're looking out there that still haven't been signed to a team yet in free agency?
Right. Well, I mean, Snell and Montgomery, obviously the top 2 starters still out there, but several other good starters out there. Imanaga, another Japanese star. I think we're looking at the Red Sox possibly for him. The Angels and Giants will be involved. The Cubs haven't done much. The Mets have been tied to him, but I was hearing, maybe not a great chance for Imanaga. So probably one of those other 4 or 5 teams for him. Obviously, you've got the next tier with Ryu. You've got Paxton, you've got Minaya, you've got Lorenzen. So still, starting pitching has been the hot market, the one hot market. They still have some pretty good starters out there. Hader is still obviously available, and he's rightfully, I believe, looking for the highest contract in relief history. Edwin Diaz got that last year, a little bit over $100 million. And, for me, Hader is fantastic. And whoever gets him is going to get a great, great pitcher. The lowest batting average against of any pitcher in modern baseball history, and the most strikeouts per nine, 15, exactly 15.0 strikeouts per nine over his career. And we haven't heard a ton on Hader. I wouldn't necessarily mean that there isn't a good market for him. I certainly think there has to be. The Dodgers are one team that we have heard, and obviously they're willing to spend, and they're going for a super team. I think they already have one, but wouldn't be shocked if it ends up being the Dodgers. The Rangers are another potential fit there. I think Hader is going to have to be patient. That relief market has been slow. There are a lot of relievers left, not just Hader, but Hader's obviously the key guy. In terms of the hitters, you obviously have Soler, as you mentioned. The team's looking at hitting. Still will consider him. Seattle, Arizona among them. You've got J.D. Martinez as well. Justin Turner, Teoscar Hernandez. He's been linked to the Dodgers, Angels, and Red Sox. Gary Sanchez, who rejuvenated his career and actually was very good last year in San Diego. He's probably looking for a multi-year at this point, but it's a long list of pretty good players that are still available in the new year, and we're getting pretty close to free agency, where we still have a lot of good players left. And of course, Bellinger. Cubs were the team that made the most sense, but hasn't happened yet. So I think we got to look at a lot of other teams potentially for Bellinger, whether it be the Giants, the Jays. I wouldn't rule out the Phillies. They had basically got no offense out of center field. I covered them in the NLCS, and he was a basically good defender, automatic out. So they've been very good in free agency. Angels, they've got a lot of money to spend. Could they move Trout to the corner and have signed Bellinger? Possibly. And then Chapman, I still think the Giants are the most likely team with Bob Melvin, his old manager from the A's, but the Jays really don't have a starting third baseman. I like IKF, but he's more of a utility guy at this point than a starting third baseman for a first division team. So I would look at them as a possibility, and the Cubs as well.
There's a lot of dominoes still to fall here, John. Not a lot of pieces.
Absolutely.
Pitchers and catchers reporting in a month here. So it'll be interesting to see where those guys end up. Finally, we bring this all home. We always talk about most disappointing team of the week, but let's talk about most disappointing team of the offseason in another sense. The team you haven't seen make the moves you think they need to make in order to address in the offseason. Who is it?
How about the Cubs? I don't know what they're doing. I mean, they got a great manager. Obviously, we all know that, as we were hoping he'd come to New York, and he ended up with the Cubs. Craig Counsell, terrific manager, leaving the Brewers to go to the hated Cubs. And, that may help them somewhat, although I didn't think there was anything wrong with David Ross. But you would think that signaled they're going to do something special. And we know they have money. We always knew they had revenue, but I just happened to be in Chicago and dropped my daughter and her cousin off and to go ice skating at Wrigley Field. They didn't tell me how much it cost, but I'm sure I contributed money to Tom Ricketts. So they've got money to spend, and I don't know what they're doing with it, because as we do this now, I think they've spent zero on free agents, and they don't have a great hitting team. Their pitching is okay. Their hitting not great. So they don't love Bellinger for whatever reason, even though he was great for them. They have some model that suggests that, maybe he's not going to be that great. We know that, his hard hit rate wasn't really what you look for, the exit velocity. But, he hit 306 with an 881 OPS. The guy's been in the top 10 in MVP 3 times, including, I believe, last year. So, for whatever reason, if he doesn't float their boat, even though they signed him, made a great signing at $17.5 million, and he did great for them, they got to do something. And, whether it's Chapman, whomever, do something. Justin Turner, something for the Cubs. This is a big market team with huge revenue, and it's getting more huge as far as I couldn't even find a parking spot. Place was packed, so I'm assuming we spent money, but I don't like to ask because I don't want to know, but I'm sure we did. And good for Tom Ricketts. They've done a great job there from a business standpoint. They only finished 1 game behind the Diamondbacks. So, they were 1 game.
They had a great season.
Being able to do, or having the potential to do what the Diamondbacks did, which was get to the World Series. You would think they would have stepped up and done something big to really, I don't want to say ensure themselves a playoff spot, certainly, but enhance their chances.
Right.
And they have done nothing.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Like again, if Bellinger, like you talked about, like if they're not interested in that, where do you replace that production in that lineup? In a lineup that you said didn't really produce as much as you would think last year. But again, we'll see how it plays out. We'll see where Bellinger ends up, and I'm sure you'll be all over it, John, for all these top names we just discussed. And we appreciate you giving us some time in the new year talking about the Yankees, Mets, and all the other MLB offseason moves. And appreciate you as always, man.
Oh, great. Great talking to you, Ryan.